Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video we're going to try to straighten out the media mendacity mess regarding the latest fake news that that Linda Kasabian has passed away at age 71 in Tacoma, Washington. You may remember Linda Kasabian's name as the key prosecution witness in the conviction of the Manson family. You know, the cult, ritual, evil Manson family, who all followed Charles Manson, a man with no bank account, no driver's license, no vehicle, no employment, owned no homes, and yet became a bigger cult leader than Jim Jones of the People's Temple Agricultural Project. That's how talented, that's how incredibly talented Charles Manson was. So talented. Okay? He's like 10,000 Gavin Newsoms. That's how talented Charlie Manson was. Playing the guitar with Neil Young at the swimming pool at the Will Rogers CBS 5.88 acre estate at 14400 Sunset Boulevard there in Pacific Palisades. Charlie Manson hanging out at the pool with all the bikini-clad babes, including Dean Martin's daughter, Dina Martin, Dean Martin's daughter, Dina, swimming at the pool with Charlie Manson and Neil Young, who ends up signing a contract with Atlantic Records and then having all his music owned by Warner Brothers, because Warner Brothers bought Atlantic Records. That means Warner Brothers owns Neil Young's music. That's what that means. That means Neil Young does not have the legal authority to pull his music off Spotify. So that was kind of a poppycock mendacity fake story about a year ago regarding the CIA-controlled show Joe Rogan. It's a CIA-controlled show. And Neil Young is a CIA-controlled Hollywood music singer. See, it's like CIA on CIA. That's what we got with the Linda Kasabian story. She's part of a CIA operation, and there's multiple operations, by the way. It's not just one operation. It's multiple. And, you've learned from watching my money laundering videos, it's all about concealment of the truth and the promotion of poppycock. Those are the two things, and they go simultaneously together. So, Linda Kasabian, not her real name. So what was her real name? So her real name was Linda Darlene Drouin, spelled D-R-O-U-I-N. Her father was Roger Drouin. He was a construction worker. She was born in Maine, and the state of Maine. Her mother's name is Joyce Taylor. And Linda Darlene Drouin grew up to be 5 foot 1 inches tall. Okay? We have a lot of short people in the Manson cult. Linda Darlene Drouin had 2 children, okay, before and during the Sharon Tate murders, okay? Oh, man. Anyway, she wasn't supposed to be the prosecuting star witness. It was supposed to be Susan Atkins, in case you didn't remember your Manson story footnotes. But anyway, the Susan Atkins story got torpedoed when Susan changed her mind and recanted her phony fake script writing by Paul Caruso and Aaron Stovich, who ran the Manson prosecution for Evil Younger, which his staff referred to as Evil Younger. He was an OSS heroin opium expert during World War II in Burma and Bangkok and Burma. Evil Younger, the district attorney of Los Angeles County, who brought in his top prosecutor, Aaron Stovich, age 47, to prosecute 5 innocent people, being Charlie Miles Maddox. It's his legal name. You know him as Manson. Charlie Miles Maddox, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, who's about 5'2", Susan Atkins, who I think is 5'4", Charlie Manson's 5'2.5", and then we have Leslie Van Houten, who was the homecoming queen over there, living in Altadena, but I think she went to a high school in the city next door. And then we have Charles Watson from Texas, that the media renamed Tex Watson because they didn't want you to confuse Tex Watson with Charlie Miles Maddox. But you see, if you follow this case, you'll be confused constantly because everything you think you know is, of course, incorrect. And all five of those people I just mentioned, Charlie Watson, Charlie Miles Maddox, Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, Leslie Van Houten, completely innocent of murder. They killed no one, ever. And who is Linda Kasabian? Oh, she was the taxi driver, driving a 1959 Ford Galaxy tuna boat of a car, and she drove the infamous killers to the Sharon Tate murder scene, and then the next day drove the killers over to murder Lino LaBianca, who's a military policeman, stands 6 foot tall, 235 pounds, has 6 loaded weapons in his mother's home at 3301 Waverly. And then they stabbed him 10 times in the chest with a M7 bayonet, which has never been found. And they murdered Rosemary, who's in the bedroom, and they stabbed her 41 times. All right? And tied her wrists with the cords from the lamp. They tied Lino's wrists with the M7 bayonet leatherette, 43-inch leatherette that comes standard with all M7 holsters. It's kind of a bad thing if you want to conceal the fact you're using a military bayonet. You probably should not leave the leatherette behind, but they did. See, there were no weapons found, no murder weapons were found on any of these crimes. So the killers were smart enough to remove the bayonets off the property, but they did leave the leatherette over at Cielo Drive, tying Tom Coomer's hands. You know him as Jay Sebring, that's his CIA name. And they left Lino LaBianca's wrist tied behind his back. I'm sure he was chloroformed as well. I'm sure Sharon Tate was chloroformed, and so was Jay Sebring, because they didn't struggle and they were killed in a very straightforward manner, whereas Abigail Folger and Wojtek Frykowski were fleeing the property, and they were stabbed in a 360-degree pattern all over their bodies, because every direction they went to escape, they were met with the business end of the M7 NATO bayonet. And that's also true with Stephen Parent, shot 4 times with M16 rifle, stabbed once with the bayonet in his left wrist with such force that it severed his wristwatch band, tossing his wristwatch into the rear passenger seat of his parents' AMC Rambler Ambassador 2-door sedan. Got it? And, of course, we have 3 dogs and a 19-year-old pool boy, William Garrickson, unharmed in the 2,000-square-foot pool house just about 100 feet away from Abigail Folger's bled-out corpse, where she was stabbed 28 times, 1 inch to 6 inches deep. She was stabbed another dozen times superficially, like on her cheek, on her wrist, on her kneecap, in other parts of her body that would not have been fatal. And Linda Kasabian, according to her testimony at the trial, was sitting in the driver's seat of the 1959 Ford Galaxy, parked at the bottom of the driveway known as Cielo Drive, off Cielo Drive at Bella Drive. I know it's confusing. It's supposed to be confusing. That's about 450 yards away, around a corner and down a hill, where you wouldn't be able to hear a cannon explode on the property. And just for the record, Linda Kasabian never testified that she saw anyone murder anyone. Okay, so she's not the witness to any murders, and she's the key witness for the prosecution. So you have a case where no murder weapon were ever found. There are no eyewitnesses to these murders. Okay, you have NATO equipment left behind in the form of the leather ligature. It's ignored. A buck knife is found allegedly, probably planted, allegedly in the sofa cushion, under the sofa cushion above Sharon Tate's body in the living room of the CIA-owned house, RKO Radio Pictures Studios. And that buck knife is a one-edged weapon, and the wounds are all double-edged, diamond-shaped pattern, matching the M7 bayonet. The buck knife is 6 millimeters wider and dull on the top edge, so it doesn't match any of the wounds on any of the victims. So in other words, they found a weapon that was not used in the crime, and that was admitted by Judge Older, Charles Older, another Charles, to confuse you. Remember, I got Charles Watson, I got Charles Miles Maddox Manson, and then I got the hanging judge, Charles Older. He's in the OSS also, and he flew the Flying Tigers and was shooting down Japanese airplanes before Pearl Harbor. Before World War II, Judge Older's flying out of Burma, you know, where they sent the district attorney to work on those opium fields in Burma. So yet the district attorney of Los Angeles is an alumni of the OSS, Office of Special Services, and the judge that convicted and sentenced Charlie Manson, he's OSS alumni also, part of the Flying Tigers, representing China, the Republic of China, against Japan, before World War II began. Isn't that fascinating? And Charles Manson was not permitted to defend himself in court, which is consistent with military maritime law, admiralty law, the law of the sea. Just sit there and be quiet. So Linda Kasabian is the witness that didn't witness anything, but she alleges to have parked the taxi cab at the base of the driveway. Okay, that is a lie. It's untrue. Now, I understand that Linda Kasabian, was under a lot of pressure, okay? First of all, she already had a daughter, Tanya. She had that daughter in 1968, I believe. Tanya was born. And when she allegedly was at the crime scene in Cielo Drive, where she sat in the taxi cab, she was pregnant with her second child, who was a son, named Angel. So you got Tanya and Angel. So Tanya is, I guess, with a babysitter, right? Because if you have to go drive people around to murder people, Linda Kasabian is 20 years old. She's 20 years old. She's the taxi driver. She's the only person who has a valid California driver's license. And you should know that when the media tells you that Linda Kasabian was a part of the Manson family, you got to have a footnote. Well, when did she begin her membership? Well, she never met Charlie Manson before July 4th, 1969. That was the earliest that she ever met Charles Watson, allegedly at the Spawn Ranch, which is probably a poppycock story. But anyway, she claims that she appeared at the Spawn Ranch on the 4th of July, 1969. Well, the murders happened on August 9th, 1969. That meant that Linda Kasabian, if you believe the poppycock, which I don't, but if you believe the poppycock and you actually want to follow through the fake story, then you know that Linda Kasabian was a member of the Manson family for a grand total of the time from the 4th of July to the 31st of July, which is 27 days, plus 9 days to the murder of Sharon Tate. So it's 9 plus 27 equals 36. So she was a cult member of a family for 36 days, and she's pregnant and is taking care of a 2-year-old little boy. 18 months. She has an 18-month-old son, and she's pregnant. Got this right. She has an 18-month-old daughter, Tanya. She is pregnant with a son. And she's entering a cult family for 36 days and becomes the taxi driver. That's the facts of their case. That's the prosecution's case. And on the basis of that, they were convicted. I mean, and really only that. Because there were 81 witnesses called by the prosecution, and none of them saw a damn thing, and they didn't know anything. And Linda Kasabian, she didn't see anything either. But her story doesn't hold up because the prosecution, of course, did not call the 2 residents who lived near the gate, Seymour Cott, who just moved in and was having a housewarming party that Friday night, August 8th, 1969. Seymour Cott and his wife are entertaining guests. They live at 10170 Cielo Drive, right next to the gate, this alleged gate that Charles Watson disabled with a bum knee and climbed up the telephone pole and disabled the gate that has the little bell and electronically disconnected it and the telephone wire. Poppycock. Anyway, Seymour Cott was interviewed by NBC News, and he says on camera, you can Google it, he only heard cats meowing Friday night into the morning, and that his guests left around midnight. And the Sony clock that was found on the passenger seat of Stephen Parent's parents' Rambler Ambassador sedan read 12:14 a.m. 12:14. I happen to have owned a Sony clock just like that. It was state of the art in 1969, and it was, when you unplug it, it locks onto that time. And if that was unplugged in the pool house while he was visiting William Garrickson, then they would have been in the pool house on or around 12:14, assuming the time was correct. And then it would have taken him a few minutes to walk, say goodbye, and walk the little trail to his parents' car, whereupon he was met with NATO forces, and they murdered him by shooting him 4 times with M16, and ordering him to halt, stabbing him, lunging and stabbing him once with the M7 bayonet attached to the rifle, M16, and then putting his lights out. And that would have happened sometime around 12:20 a.m. Saturday morning. 12:20, 12:22. Don't forget, he also had crashed into the white ranch-style fence. He rear-ended the ranch-style fence in his franticness to exit the property and reverse the car's direction whilst he was being accosted by NATO forces. It's a NATO attack. Had nothing to do with any hippies. So, and you're talking about, at least 12 NATO soldiers. So, he had no chance at all leaving that property. The gate had already been dismantled. So the point is, if it's around 12:20 a.m., Seymour Cott didn't hear anything, and he wasn't asleep yet. He was just saying goodbye to his guests. The other problem that we have here is, of course, Linda Kasabian is saying she's parked at the bottom of the hill, and it's a real tight, almost U-turn. It's like a U-turn. It's very tight apex there. You can only park one small car there, and you'd clog the corner. And the other problem is we've got a young woman by the name of Maureen. Oh, where is Maureen's name? Surratt. Maureen Surratt, spelled S-E-R-O-T. Don't forget, Seymour Cott's name is spelled K-O-T-T. He heard cats meowing. Maureen Surratt claims she returned home to her stepfather. She lives next door to Seymour Cott. There were only 2 homes on that driveway at that time. And Maureen was at 10088, next door to Seymour Cott at 10170. The homes are right next door to each other. There's a small little alleyway between them. And Maureen Surratt saw no car, had no problem turning the corner. The only thing she said that was odd was the light for the gate at the top of the driveway was out. And that there normally is a bell that rings every time that gate opens. No one heard any bell. Seymour Cott didn't hear a bell. Maureen Surratt did not hear a bell. She didn't see the 1959 Galaxy sedan, which definitely would have been there at 1 o'clock in the morning, because if you're going to murder 5 people, okay, and have a bloody mess and hang them in a cult ritual manner, and that wouldn't have happened before, 12:20 a.m., that only gives you 40 minutes to get back to that Ford Galaxy and get out of town before Maureen Surratt comes home. So you can't murder people and stage the crime scene and write pig on the front door and use the rope and tie people's wrists and stab people 103 times in 39 minutes. That's impossible. Especially when you're talking about a guy with a bum knee who's 23 years old, Charlie Watson, and a 5'2", Patricia Krenwinkel, and a 5'4" Susan Atkins, who has a 10-month son herself, she's got a little boy at the babysitter. Linda Kasabian, she's got a little boy, or she got a little girl at the babysitter. Tanya. All right, so anyway, every time a Manson family member is denied parole, every time they die, the media repeats the lie. When I posted a John Kennedy video the other day at Google, they immediately plastered it with the official context. They have a context boilerplate that goes under my videos that Lee Harvey Oswald is the alleged killer of John Kennedy. And I had no mention of Lee Oswald in my video because, see, Lee Oswald had no involvement whatsoever in the killing of John Kennedy. So why would I have him in the video? And I don't really talk that much about Charlie Manson or Charlie Watson or Linda Kasabian because they had no participation in any murders, and I'm interested in homicides. So because I'm interested in what actually happened, I don't talk about the cover story scapegoats. Okay? I understand the media dedicates 60 years to discussing scapegoats on the Spanish-American War, on Korea, the Korean War, World War II, Pearl Harbor, the Vietnam War, 9/11. They just dedicate a army to mendacities and rinse and repeat. So what I wanted to tell you people is that Linda Kasabian committed perjury on the stand. And the reason she did was that they told her she was going to be charged with 7 homicides and spend the rest of her life in prison and get the gas chamber and never see her children again if she didn't lie on the stand. And so she agreed to lie on the stand. And if you knew anything about maritime law and how criminal courts work in the United States of America, you would understand what I just said. You'd lie too. You would lie too. Especially if you have children. Because, see, they can tell you, hey, your children's going to die. You're never going to see your kid again, except you'll hear about his obituary, unless you lie on the stand. You're going to lie on the stand. Okay? You're going to lie on the stand. Oh, yeah, the Menendez boys, they're guilty because they confessed to it. They're not guilty. They're innocent. Okay? You have no clue what goes on in the prisoner dilemma game when you're incarcerated. You have no clue whatsoever. The psychologists, the drugs, the MK Ultra, Svengali trance that everybody's under. I mean, look at COVID. Nobody can agree on anything, right? It's total chaos. So do you think that people who wear a face diaper driving in a car by themselves can be trusted to give testimony under oath on a witness stand? I mean, I have zero confidence that that person would remotely know what the truth was. But in any case, what I tell you is that there was a railroad, and Linda Kasabian is not pertinent to the Sharon Tate murder whatsoever. It has no effect whatsoever on who killed Sharon Tate. Sharon Tate was killed by soldiers flown in from NATO bases, probably from Kiev, Belgium, and flown to Burbank, Hollywood Airport, and the killers were staged in the homes surrounding the kill site, at 10100 Sunbrook Drive, 10106 Sunbrook Drive, 1212 Angelo Drive, 10107 Sunbrook Drive, 10048 Cielo Drive, which is 2 homes and 5 showers, Doppelganger twin home just below. And it's pretty clear that the tenants that were living, Seymour Cott and Maureen Surratt, they're tenants. They're not permanent. They don't own those homes. And they were just like brought in. They're like just-in-time witnesses, the witnesses that didn't see anything, and they didn't provide testimony to trial because they don't support the Linda Kasabian perjury that she parked down in that driveway and was sitting there for an hour. That's not true, because we got 2 witnesses that never saw it. They're witnesses that she wasn't parked at the corner of Bella and Cielo like she testified. But the jury, convicted anyway, because you can convict a ham sandwich in a military tribunal fake trial where there is no defense offered. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.